S.M.I.L.E Youth Lounge, a space where young minds come together to learn, grow, and connect.
We dive into topics that actually matter, from relationship
To money,
movies,
mental health,
leadership,
business,
and career goals. You name it, we talk about it.
and the best part, we keep it real and interactive.
And maybe you should expect giveaway, teasers, and a whole lot of vibes.
So if you're ready to level up, connect with like-minded people, and get insights that actually matter, hit the subscribe button now. Hello, beautiful people. How are you guys doing? I trust you're good. How have you been since the last episode that we had? I trust you've been good, like I said earlier. My name is Ruth Abimbola, and I humbly welcome you to another exciting, interesting, amazing episode of Youth Lounge. This is a space where young minds come together to learn, to grow, and to connect. And trust us to always bring you interesting, meaningful topics that would add to how you see life in general as a young individual in our society today, and how you are able to grow as an individual in general.
Fun fact, is this surprising or anecdote? Mental clutter equals mental noise. When everything feels urgent, nothing gets done. Your brain needs clarity, not chaos. Stress makes you reactive, not productive. Your brain isn't tired, it is overwhelmed. Fatigue is often mistaken for laziness. Cognitive overload could be the real villain.
Today, we are going to be uncovering the hidden factors that hinder youth productivity beyond time management. So, we are basically going to be delving into the non-time management issues impacting youth productivity in our society today. And I won't be doing this alone, as I have someone very, very important joining me on this episode of Youth Lounge. You already know we don't just bring anybody on this show. We bring people that are knowledgeable about the topic that we want to talk about and address. And today, my guest will be joining me all the way from the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, for this episode of your Youth Lounge, my guest is Miss Paula Bangboshe Martins. Miss Paula Bangboshe Martins is a licensed physiotherapist and founder of Human Therapist LLC, serving clients in the United States. With nearly a decade of experience, Paula works with individuals, couples, and families navigating anxiety, complex trauma, ADHD, relationship, and family challenges. She also, attends to issues like women's health and the impact of intersecting identities. Paula holds a BSc in psychology from the University of Sheffield in the United Kingdom and a master's in counseling and mental health services and professional counseling in the United States of America. Outside the therapy room, Paula is the co-founder of Being Aware and Going Through It, a mental health initiative dedicated to raising awareness and encouraging emotional resilience among emerging Nigerian adults, and the co-host of the podcast, Do We Have Your Attention, where she curates candid and meaningful conversations around mental health, emotional, and spiritual well-being. She loves singing, and you can find her music on streaming platforms like Spotify when you search Paula B. She also enjoys yoga, traveling, cooking, and Bravo TV. Ladies and gentlemen, Paula is also a member of S.M.I.L E. That means she's a family member, and we are so excited to welcome her on this episode of Youth Lounge. With whatever it is that you want to do from the comfort of your home, if you like to clap or give our guest a standing ovation, ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Miss Paula Bangboshe Martins. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction. I'm doing really well. How are you doing too as well?
I'm fine, thank you. We are so honored to have you. Thank you for honoring our invitation. And I know that I just read your
Absolutely.
I just read your profile. I just like introduced you to our guest, but I would like them to hear from the horse's mouth. So let's get to meet who Paula is.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that you did such a good job with breaking down who I am, what I do, and what I love. And
Thank
just
you.
to summarize that, I am a, like you mentioned, I am a licensed psychotherapist based in the US. But I did start transitioning into the mental health field way before moving to the US. I see mental health as my passion, my purpose, pretty much my work in life, if you want to put it that way. And I think I'm one of those people who can say that she's very blessed to have found what it is that she loves
Mm,
to do. Not only just loves to do, but is also good at doing too as well. Besides practicing psychotherapy and obviously running my own psychotherapy mental health practice, to be specific, I also teach at my former grad school.
mm,
a I teach a program slash a seminar class at my former grad school. Like you mentioned, I co-host the Do We Have Your Attention podcast with my lovely, lovely friend who's also a licensed psychotherapist as well, Aisha Popola. So a bit about my life is pretty much around just mental health, overall wellness, emotional wellness, quality, improving your quality of life. And of course, I do love to travel, hang out with my friends. I love watching, like you mentioned, reality TV.
right.
I love being able to be of service as well to people, whether it's my community. So that's sort of the gist about me.
All
Yes.
right. Thank you so much for introducing yourself to us once again. We are basically going to be addressing the non time management issues impacting youth productivity today. So I'd like to ask you, what does productivity mean to you? And what are those non obvious things that you think is killing productivity amongst young people in our society today?
Yeah, this is a good question. And I like the fact that you said, what does productivity mean to me? Because
Yeah,
I think that productivity means different things to different
exactly. It's
people,
relative.
and it's relative, exactly. And sometimes we can there's an idea of what we think productivity is.
Hmm.
So even if what we believe it is, what it makes sense for us, we might find ourselves comparing it to the idea of what we think productivity is. And that's when sometimes we can find some of these time wasters, like you said. So for me specifically, I think productivity is less about being able to get things done
Hmm.
and more about having the capacity and the competency to get things done.
Right.
So most times we measure productivity by our ability, we measure it by, okay, if you were able to complete a task, then you were productive.
Yeah.
I sort of measure it and look at it more as if I am capable, competent, and able to
Hmm.
complete a task, then that will be considered productivity because there's going to be times where I am not able to complete it,
Yeah.
but I am capable. I may have done certain things that are in line with completing that task. I was still productive, even if I didn't get it completely done.
Right.
And I would say with the non-obvious factors under this, I definitely would say sense of urgency is one of the first ones that comes to mind
Mm,
for me. I think we do live in a society where there is a sense of urgency around. I'm not exactly sure what the sense of urgency is around. There's just there. I don't know where it stems from, and if I ever sat down and I really thought about it, I would probably be able to kind of come up with ideas. But there's a sense of urgency around having to get things done.
right.
And a lot of us are working on or working with timelines that aren't actually timelines that make sense for us.
Mm,
So whether it's a timeline of when you should be going to school to study, as soon as you finish your high school, you sit down for your examinations, you go to university. That's one way of doing it, but there's many different ways of doing it, right? Where you see a lot of people who they eventually get their first degree later on in life, very different trajectories. And I think sometimes with that sense of urgency, we can find ourselves comparing our own timeline to the timeline of other
exactly.
people, not necessarily recognizing that we are slowly actually killing our own productivity because
Hmm.
we're not fully focusing on our own journey. Another one that I would say as well, obviously as a therapist, is it is what's the word? It is inevitable. I think that unsolved, just unresolved emotional stressors, challenges can play such a very big role, whether it's people who struggle with anxiety, people who struggle with depression, or other mental health challenges that aren't as obvious as, let's say, some of these other ones are. I think that most times when we have things that we haven't fully been able to address within ourselves, it can show up in our day to day functioning, our day to day practices
Absolutely.
without us realizing. And a lot of times when we see things like time management, right? If you say someone has poor time management skills, the assumption is the person might be lazy,
Mm-hmm.
the person might be distracted,
Mm-hmm.
but we never really ask the, I'll put it this way, something that we often say in the scope of family therapy, especially child focused family therapy, because let's be real, right? When we think about kids, I think a lot of these things fall under that category for kids, where you might see a kid who seems lazy when it comes to homework, seems very distracted, seems very disruptive. The question that we always say is, you don't ask what is wrong with this
Yeah.
child, you ask what happened to this
Mm.
child, because what is wrong is making the assumption of there is something
Wrong with the
wrong with
child.
you.
Yeah.
You are lazy, you are this, sort of the labeling that we attach to a lot of these behaviors that show lack of productivity. But when we reframe it and ask what happened to
Yeah.
said child, what we're saying is there is reason
For what's
behind this.
happening. Yeah.
There is further investigation exactly that needs to happen to be able to understand. So someone who might be lazy and might have a lot of these time killers or time wasters might be someone who might actually be struggling with hormonal imbalance. And I would be one of those people who struggles with hormonal imbalance. So I would know where there's weeks where my productivity is just not the best.
Mm.
Whereas there's weeks where I would say that, let's say, if I so happen to have maybe more balance in my hormones, it changes. So I would definitely say that unresolved emotional stressors that can lead to things like stress, fatigue, or that are tied into more mental health issues can be a very good one. And the last one I would say to that is poor habits,
Mm.
which is just the truth. I think
Right.
poor habits around our lifestyle, food, sleep, exercise, if you look at the Maslow's hierarchy right behind me, just the basic things on a day-to-day basis that allow us to be able to function. If we don't fully have disciplined habits around these things, it is very easy, and research even shows whether it's a link or a correlation between, let's say, high intake of sugar and fatigue, or a link or correlation between high intake of sodium and fatigue or anxiety. So it's very clear that if we don't necessarily have or create a lifestyle, and when I say discipline, I don't mean being overly structured, your perfection, because most times we always see discipline as perfection. What we're
Yeah.
just saying is having at least more than 50% of your life
Figured
be
out.
towards discipline and structure
Mm.
versus having less than 50% of that when it comes to these habits that are very necessary on a day to day basis.
Wow, that was so extensive. I like the fact that you took your time to give us a detailed answer and some of the reasons that might be affecting our productivity as young people today.
Welcome to this week's Brain Teaser. All you have to do is decide which of the things I'm going to be reciting belongs to the this or that category. Without further ado, let's get into it. Which one creates more mental clutter? A. Too many open tasks in your mind or head. B. Overthinking what others think. C. Fear of failing. D. Lack of boundaries. E. Perfectionism. F. Not writing things down. And G. All of the above. Now, let me know which one belongs to the this or that category of the things that create more mental clutter.
And you already made mention of some of the things that I would like you to address in my next question for you. And that would be, how do emotional factors like stress, because you made mention of stress, you made mention of emotional imbalance and things like that while addressing the question I asked you earlier. So, how do emotional factors like stress, anxiety, fear of failure, or low self confidence sneak into our day and affect our ability to get things done?
Yeah, thank you. I would say that it is inevitable when you actually do think about it, right? That these things are going to affect your productivity. I'll put it this way: I don't know if you know this producer, DJ Khalid.
Yeah, I do.
There's an interview a couple years back that I saw of him where the person who was interviewing him had asked him, like, why do you take care of yourself? I noticed that you post a lot about
Yeah,
self-care, you take care of
vacation
yourself.
and all of that.
You're always on vacation, you're
Yeah.
doing many different things. And he said, I see my body as the machine.
Hmm.
And if my body is the machine that is going to be able to produce these things that obviously bring fruitful results, and if you don't take care of,
Of
you
that
look at obviously
machine.
if you work
Yes,
in warehouses, right, and they oftentimes have to maintain those equipments that are going to help produce a bunch of
definitely.
things.
Yeah,
So he said, if I don't take care of that machine, the productivity and what I produce is going to be
affected.
very, very, it might still, something might come out of it. It would never be to the quality that I would like.
Yeah,
It would never be to the level of functioning
absolutely.
that I would like. There might be some, if you think about, let's say, machines that aren't fully maintained, there might be some errors with what is being produced. So for him, he sort of explained that the priority always has to lie within the machine and
Hmm.
nothing else. Because most times we see it as we look at the results, like what we want to produce, like if I can just get all of these things done. But then we never really say, am I in the frame of mind, the state of being, the place where I am able, capable, functioning enough to be able to get these things done? So, of course, when we really do think about it, it can easily affect us, whether it comes from a place of, let's say, fear of failure,
Mm-hmm.
where unfortunately fear can be something, such a crippling emotion. Fear is
Yeah,
so crippling that it can convince us sometimes of things that aren't really true. And the
that's
thing
very
with
true.
fear is, and I guess I would say the thing with fear as well is that unfortunately there's the assumption that we need to remove fear for us to then be productive. But the truth of the matter is you do it afraid. And I'm sure you've heard that so many times that
Yeah, a lot of
most times we
times.
assume that we have to eliminate fear, but your ability to be productive does not have anything to do with the fear.
Mm,
Most times the fear is around the unknown. It's around not really knowing if you're going to be able or capable. But how are you
exactly.
going to know if you don't do it? So
Exactly.
even if you're doing it afraid, by the time you see the results, that easily can eliminate the fear, or it can validate the fact that maybe this is something that you shouldn't be doing. I
Yeah.
would say again, another thing, I guess another how these emotional factors sort of sneak in as well obviously comes with anxiety. I think anxiety
That's very true.
is one of those very big factors, whether it looks like persistently worrying, excessive fear, ruminating thoughts, whether it looks like overthinking, whether it looks like chronic stress or fatigue. A lot of these things can easily play a role. And it goes back to what DJ Khaled was saying, right? In regards to if you aren't fully taking the steps
Hmm.
to be able to reframe the way in which your mind shows up and the way in which you process information on a day to day basis, there is going to be a likelihood that your productivity will never be to the level to which you would like it to be
Yeah.
because they hold you back. So, say for example, and I know sometimes people say there's the extreme of being pessimistic versus something called toxic positivity, where your positivity is a little bit outside the norm. It's just, if you let's just put it this way, your position is outside the norm in the sense where you still have to be realistic about certain outcomes. It's not that we're living in la la land. You know how they say, is
Exactly.
it Gen Z's
You're
that
not
say,
deceiving
is it
yourself.
Delulu, Delulu,
Exactly.
Delulu
It's
is
Delulu.
Solulu. So we have to obviously find a good balance of recognizing that you can have anxious thoughts, but what are you doing about these anxious thoughts? You can have stressful thoughts, but what are you doing about these stressful thoughts? And our feelings most times they can dictate a lot
Yeah,
for us. But a lot of people don't recognize that our feelings are actually not as accurate as we think they are. So, say for example, if I woke up and I already assumed that this was going to be a stressful day, like the perception and already the idea is this is going to be a stressful day, what is the likelihood that my feelings are going to be in line with that thought is going to be very, very high. Now, because my feelings are in line with that thought that this might be a stressful day, does not make that true because I've actually yet to leave the day for me to know that it is going to be a stressful day.
exactly.
So most times we don't realize that we sort of manifest and put out what
Yeah.
can really hold us
People always
back.
say there's power in your
But of
tongue.
course,
Yeah.
there's power in your tongue, exactly. But of course, it's easier said than done. But I will say that these are some of those factors.
People who grew up in places like Ajigole and maybe kids who grew up in let's say places like Banana Island or didn't even like grow up
Mm,
in a country like Nigeria at all, that I shouldn't expect the same outcome from these kids. And I was just trying to not agree with him. I was like, I don't think so, blah 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 blah. I know
mm,
that your environment definitely makes an impact on you as an
yeah,
individual, but then I feel like it
yeah,
is dependent on what you want as that individual in this environment or
yeah,
in this situation, right? So it was like, there's no way, there's nothing I shouldn't like try to stress myself to make him think otherwise or like just paint the whole scenario as though what he's saying isn't true. So that
yeah.
leads me to asking you if truly our environment affects our productivity. I mean, places like where we live, where we grew up, and the people we are surrounded by, and things like this. Do you think they really affect us and affect who we become eventually, not just our productivity as young people in our
Yeah,
society today?
yeah. Thank you for that question. And I've had my fair share of interactions
Mm-hmm.
with people as well where we end up having some type of debate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, this is a good thing for me to take back and actually think about it. So I'll just shut to answer your question pretty much directly. I would say yes, it
Mm.
does, but I want to just provide context.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it affects.
Mm.
I would just reframe that and say it influences.
Mm.
And multiple things can influence one thing. So most times I think we live in a world where us human beings we can be very black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning if I grew up in this environment, you grew up in that environment, this is the path for you, this is a path for me. And sometimes we don't, going back to what I had said earlier on that we don't realize that we're sort of speaking these things into existence.
Exactly.
Now, I want to make it clear that absolutely socioeconomic factors play a very big role. The likelihood that someone who grew up in a lower socioeconomic environment versus someone who grew up in a higher socioeconomic background and environment, the likelihood what we're sort of talking about is the differences: accessibility, resources,
True.
help, support, education. So there's sort of the what's the word, like the streamline to a lot of these things and opportunities. The trajectory easily becomes easier for said person than it becomes for the other person with the lower economic background. That is very true. Now, because one person's is easier and one person comes with a lot of challenges, does not mean that it is impossible for said person or for these two people to meet each other at the same place. Because going back to what you were saying, it still lies within the person,
Yeah.
right? Like it still lies within you. It still within your values, who you are, what you want for yourself, your ability, your zeal and whatnot. But I would agree that, and multiple things can be true at the same time, that your environment influences your productivity, but your environment does not determine
Yeah.
what your productivity is going to look like. And
Mm.
sometimes we immediately look at influence and we equate it to determination. So there's what ends up happening is a sense of like learned helplessness, where, and I'll just break it down. Learned helplessness is almost you have solutions, but you can't see the solutions to helping yourself because you've already created the narrative that you are helpless.
Mm.
So, unfortunately, sometimes we can end up in that mindset. And I think our environment can absolutely reiterate that mindset for us, which is even more reasons why we need to consistently always surround ourselves with people who are thinking outside of our environment, people who can easily, through their own experiences, you go, oh, yes, like I didn't think it was capable for me. Now I think it's capable for me.
Mm.
So it's very simple. It's as simple as even me surrounding myself with, let's say, Black women who own their own business and private practice. And I'm like, oh, so it's possible for me to be able to do that. Now I've seen something that I did not think was possible for me to do before that has become possible because there's people
Very true.
around me
Very true.
who are outside of my environment. And when I say environment too, is also your thinking. Like it's your thinking, it's your mindset. So I would say yes, it influences, but it definitely does not determine what that is going to look like.
Exactly. Yeah. I I don't know if the reason for my excitement is because at the end of the response it said that it doesn't affect who you become, because I was leaning towards the aspect of it doesn't determine who you become eventually, because we've seen people who lived in
Mm.
very rural environment, and like
Yeah,
they've been able to be an important personality in our society today. They've been able to build something very meaningful
yeah,
for themselves. So I like that.
yeah.
The response was like in my favor. This conversation has been an interesting one, and I hope that everybody at home is learning something. I know that you already know by now that this isn't a show you watch and then you don't get anything out of. And I believe that whenever it is we want to watch a show like this, we should be with our pen, we should be with our notepads, so that we can take these tips and not just, listen to them, but implement them in our daily activities as well, because that is one of the essence of this show, to help us become better individuals in our society, to increase our productivity, to just make sure that young people are not stranded, but they get help. And I hope that
Mm.
this is already doing justice to all of that. Do you think that you being bored when doing something or losing motivation when doing that thing that you would normally enjoy doing is a red flag that you're either out of alignment or no longer, or that's no longer the purpose for you? And do you think it affects our
Mm.
productivity as young people? So I'll try to break it down. Let's say, for instance, I used to enjoy speaking, I used to enjoy presenting, I used to enjoy everything that I
Mm.
do in the media space, basically. And then at some point, it becomes bored to me. Like there's just this boredom that I begin to feel, and then I just don't get motivated to do what I usually enjoyed doing before. Do you think that is a
Mm.
red flag, or is it a sign that probably that's not what I should be doing at that moment anymore, or that that's no longer, I'm no longer in alignment with that career, with that field?
Yeah,
And does it affect my productivity?
yeah. I think it can be a sign,
Mm-hmm.
but it can also be an indication of something else. So remember, I always go with the school of thought that multiple things can be true at the same time. It's not a one size fits all,
Right.
meaning it can be a sign that this is maybe something that you don't have, that yeah, that you've maybe lost interest in, or you need redirection, or you need to pivot to something else. But it can definitely be an indication of other things. It can be an indication of more deep rooted things that are going on that make that particular interest of yours not an interest anymore. An example of that is the depression scale.
Yeah.
One of the questions that we ask on there is, have you lost interest in things that normally give you joy? Like the things that you normally would be interested in. Have you lost interest in that? So clearly there's a reason, because there is correlation and link between that and depression. So it may not necessarily be around necessarily you not wanting to do that thing, but more so there is other things in your life that are happening that are causing you to experience depression that makes it difficult for you to do that thing.
Mm.
So I always say like the best thing for one to do is to investigate first. Like inquire and inquire we need to, the way in which we inquire about people, we need to inquire about ourselves as well, because inquiring about yourself helps you be able to fully identify what might be going on, helps you be able to fully understand what might be going on, but then it also helps you be able to address what might be going on versus already going to the conclusion that this is because I no longer want to be doing this, and then you leave it and then you transition to the next thing. And yeah, the world we live in today, short term immediate gratification can be is one of those, I guess you could say, things that hold us back as well with our productivity, because if we don't see results, if we don't see results immediately, we don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If we feel like there is a lack of interest there, we don't want to do it. But the truth of the matter is it is a journey that we all
Yeah.
are on,
Yeah.
and there's going to be times when you are not going to like what you do. There's going to be times where it burns you out,
Becomes
it exhausts you.
overwhelming.
Trust me,
Yeah.
I have my, and I think sometimes there's an assumption as well for someone like myself who's a psychotherapist that every single day I'm like, it's great to be a psycho. Let me sit down and work with people and their mental health and their mental health challenges. And there are times where I'm like, I don't want to listen to anybody today. I just want to be
Exactly. I just
quiet.
want to be on my own.
I'm not interested in my job. It doesn't necessarily mean that there I no longer want to do that thing.
Yeah.
It just means that I now need to maybe focus on my own self. Am I overextending myself?
Mm-hmm.
Am I dealing with stress? Are there other things in my life that are making it hard for me to enjoy this thing? So I would even say it can fall more in line with it being an indicator of something else than it being you no longer being interested
Yeah.
in this particular thing.
Wow. That's really helpful to me. And I believe that it is helpful to the audience as well.
Drum rolls as we reveal the answer. So the answer to our brain teaser is G, which means all contribute heavily to create more mental clutter.
So we have a game, but before we play the game, what are the simple daily habits that you think young people can build to improve their focus and their energy level and just their productivity in general?
Yeah, I think going back to something I had said earlier on, right, about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's I think the basics
Mm,
around food, sleep, exercise. And when I say exercise, sometimes I can reframe it as movement, right? And we're not saying become the next fitness influencer where you're in the gym 6 times in a day and whatnot. What I'm just saying is being able to give your body what it needs on a day to day basis, being able to move your body, whether it's through stretching, whether it's through walking, if you like yoga like myself, or whether it's through running, whether it's through the gym. There's so many ways in which we can move our body, and our body thanks us for that. I think already creating structure in these day-to-day habits can already rewire your brain in moving in that direction of structure, productivity, and discipline versus somebody who wants structure, productivity, and discipline, but they go to bed at 3,
hmm.
they wake up at 7, they wake up at 8, and then they're wondering why they aren't able to function throughout the day. Or someone who eats junk. You don't never see vegetables in their diet. You don't ever see fruits. You don't ever see them drinking water.
Mm.
So I'm just giving you an example. You
Yeah,
don't
I
ever, I
relate.
carry this everywhere I go. You don't ever see them being able to really give their body and their mind, because we have to feed our body, we have to feed our mind. It goes
Definitely.
side by side. Our
Yeah.
brain sends signal, we send signal up, we send signal down. So I think those very little day-to-day habits, already creating structure around it, can really help you become more motivated to be productive. The other thing that I would say is I love when people are seeking out knowledge,
Mm,
seeking out ways in which you can consistently improve and learn how to do things differently. There isn't one way to do something.
exactly.
What works for you does
Might
not
not
work
work
for
for
me.
another
I
person.
might be a morning person and be someone who is effective in the morning does not mean that it works for someone else. So really being able to figure out what works for you, whether it's asking your friends, what do you think I'm good at? What do you think I need to improve on? Would you say I'm this kind of person who, let's say, likes to do this, or would you say I'm that kind of person? It gives you information as well about yourself that can help you begin to start making practices that are in line with you. Because remember, it is very different for different people. I
Yes.
enjoy going to the gym in the morning. I love waking up and like going to exercise. My mom, hers is she goes at night. So it's very different for different people. So really being able to recognize what might work for you most times can also be a very good way in figuring that out.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And one of the reasons I was laughing earlier when you were, giving your response to the question is the fact that if I don't get a minimum of 8 hours, I know the same maximum is 8 hours of sleep in a day, but that's
It's
like,
actually nine.
right? I
So
just like
you're
to
you're
say
right on there.
minimum because if I don't sleep well, I discover that when I wake up the next day, it affects my brain. Like there's this constant
Mm-hmm.
headache that I just wake up with, and then I just become
Mm-hmm.
very sick. And then I realize that I'm usually unable to think the way I should. So that
Yeah.
was so spot on and very, very accurate. And I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. So it is time to play our game. We've been very serious from the beginning of this. I know we've been having some laughter and all of that. But now it's time to play a game with our amazing guest on the show today, Miss Paula. And so the game is Quick Picks. That's the name of the game. And what you basically do
Okay.
is pick which is a red flag and which is a green flag, because remember we talked about if you not being motivated about something is a red flag or not. So we want to
Yeah.
know if some of the things that we've
Yeah.
listed here are red flags or green flags. So
Okay.
I have about four here, and you're just going to, we want it to be very fast. So I don't want you thinking about it too much.
Okay.
Just give us your answers. So
Since
saying
you said
yeah,
it's a game,
yeah.
if it's a red flag, I'll go like this.
Oh,
If
I
it's a
love
green
that.
flag, I'll
I
drop it
love that. I love that.
down.
I love that. So does saying yes to every new project a red flag or
Red flag.
hmm? But you raised a green flag. You said it's a
Yeah,
red flag.
just when I shake it, it's a red flag.
But when you hold it, when you don't do anything with it, that's a green flag,
When I
right?
hold it, it's a green
Okay,
flag.
okay, okay. I get it now. I get it now. So now taking 10 minutes stretch breaks during the day, is it a red flag or a green flag?
Green flag.
Okay, green
That's a
flag.
green flag.
All right. Constantly tracking a finished presentation.
Constantly.
Tweaking a finished presentation.
Hmm.
Like making adjustments,
That's
doing everything. Just
I'm gonna say, I would say, I was gonna say in between, but I would say a red flag,
a red
just
flag.
because. Yeah, I would say
Why?
a red flag just because sometimes like it's not necessarily seen as something that it's good to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you're always checking
Yeah.
the work that you're doing. But if it gets to a point where you don't trust what you're putting out there or you're aiming for
Mm,
perfection,
yeah, I get the
then it can
perspective.
become a red
A red
flag. So
flag.
it depends.
All
Yeah.
right. So walking in bed with your laptop, is that a red flag or a green flag?
Red flag. Yeah.
Shouldn't
I'll
you
say a red flag.
walk in bed? Because I'm guilty of this one. So I was
I
thinking
have
your
been
response would
guilty
be in
of
my
it. That
favor.
is exactly why. I've been guilty of it. No, I would say that it is very good to create the environment of what if you're working, being able to sit at a desk
Yeah.
allows you be able to actually be in the mindset of someone who's working. The bed is supposed to be for sleeping, for
Mm,
resting, and not necessarily anything outside of that that is work related. We don't need
Yeah,
to mix up our brain in
I get
regards
it.
to
I get
the
it. I'll
places
work
that
on
we're
it.
being productive.
I'll work on it because I'm guilty. You guys, I accept. Thank you so much for joining us on this special episode. So
Thank you
I'd
for
like you to
having
just
me.
tell our audience like a take home that you like to share with us that's not related to all the questions that I've asked earlier, something that you just like to share with our audience at home, and also let us know where we can reach you, because I know that talking about everything I've said about you, some people would want to look you up or even listen to your music. So we'd like to know where we can reach you.
Yeah, I think my take home would just be I am very big on showing compassion
Mm-hmm.
to yourself, show extending grace to yourself, not beating yourself up about like where you are in your own process. I think that's very important because the judgment, the criticism, the shame actually holds you back.
Right.
Learn to be a friend to yourself the way in which you would be a friend to a friend, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And to find me, if you search Paula.b.martins or Paula B. Martins, you would easily find me on Instagram, on TikTok. You would also find a lot of my profiles as well, my website. And then for my music, it's Paula B Music. Can
Okay.
find that pretty much anywhere.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I hope that you've been
Thank
able
you
to
very much for having
take,
me.
yeah, it's a pleasure. I hope that you've been able to take the most out of this particular episode, because I have learned not to compare myself to anybody. I've learned to ask my friends the kind of things that they feel I'm good at, and that would increase my productivity level. I've learned to have enough sleep because, like I said, I'm very, very guilty of this one. And we'd just like to hear from you. Take a screenshot of this episode and share with us what your takeaways are from this episode. We'll also like everything that you've learned. You can do a voice note, you can leave it in the comment section. You can even make a video and post it and then tag us at Smile Youth Lounge. Thank you so much for watching this episode. We really appreciate your support. Thank you for always liking all the episodes that we've dropped, and we hope that you'll help us like this one as well and share it with everybody you know, your friend, your church members, a gate man, your colleagues. Share this episode of Youth Lounge with them, because you are going to be helping somebody by sharing this. You are going to be touching a life by sharing this with them. I hope you enjoyed this episode once again, and we will see you in the next episode of Youth Lounge. I remain your beautiful host, Ruth Abimbola, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.